Let me tell you how they're going to replace him, because I keep saying these big splash, whatever. Patrick Queen is still out there, and I know that's a pipe dream, but it's a good pipe dream, and it's a pipe dream that the Pittsburgh Steelers should 100% make a move at. You have $28 million. You just signed a quarterback for $1.2 million. You have a ton of money. You could save another $4 million on Cole Holcomb alone. Now you're in the 30s. Again, you have nobody to sign. You could restructure Cam's deal and push his salary cap out at least another 2 years. That saves you a boatload of money. You could restructure TJ Watt's deal. You could restructure Minkah Fitzpatrick's deal. Maybe you trade Deontay Johnson, which I was told as recently as yesterday that's an actual possibility. I'm not going to say that it's a definite, but it's an actual possibility. You are looking at a boatload of money if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, and you got to spend it somewhere. You might as well make a move at inside linebacker and say, hey, look, Patrick Queen is, I believe, 24 years old, 25 years old. He's sitting around, I mean, you're paying him what, $18 million? $18 million a year over the next 3 or 4 years. That's a lot of money, but that's not a lot of money for a team that has a lot of money, that doesn't have a quarterback contract, that chances are their next quarterback contract is another rookie deal because they're going to draft somebody after Russ, or to at least compete behind Russ. It just makes so much sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers to make a move at inside linebacker and then have the pieces elsewhere. That's the other thing here. Oh, Patrick Queen just went to the Seahawks. Wrong on that one. I thought that was it Patrick Queen? Will you confirm that one? I'll talk about Jerome Baker as the other one. If Patrick Queen went to the Seahawks, then I'm out here. If not, you keep him going. But I do go to bed early. That's why I missed the Russ news at midnight. The other one is Jerome Baker. And why we confirm Patrick Queen, the other one is Jerome Baker. The thing with Jerome Baker is you're not going to sign him right now. You're going to look at this and you're going to say, you're going to wait it out a little while. You're going to see if he's healthy. He failed a physical. That's very concerning. But if he's healthy, it's just like the Cole Holcomb thing. You're going to bring him in. You're going to work with your team doctors. You're going to evaluate him. You're going to see if he is healthy enough to play. And if your team doctors believe that the sprained MCL and the dislocated wrist are long-term concerns, if they're not, boom, you're going to stick around. And these guys are going to be names that you could evaluate and say, hey, look, this is a starter in 2024, and he's going to be ready for 2024. Okay, Patrick Queen did not go. Chat, I'm loving you guys. Okay, I didn't think so. I thought that was somebody else. If Patrick Queen did not, okay, let's go back to Patrick Queen. Look, I appreciate everybody in the chat, man. I appreciate everybody in the chat. If Patrick Queen did not go to the Seahawks, which we're going to assume he did not, and if I'm totally wrong, I apologize. He is your guy. You toss $18 million on him. That's what Spotrac has his market value at. You have no concerns there. There's your long-term answer at inside linebacker. Then you move on to Jerome Baker. You see if he's healthy. There's your 1-2 punch. Both of them under 28 years old. You have, 4 years minimum on both of them. Landon Roberts gets you another 2 seasons. You draft somebody late in the draft. Next year, the year after that, your room looks very good and very young, and the Pittsburgh Steelers have looked for very good and very young. I just think it's time to stop plugging in that hole, and I think that's the position that the Pittsburgh Steelers are done looking at as a Band-Aid. They have tried to Band-Aid this year after year after year after year, and even last year looked at it and said, look, we got 3 good starters, and they saw the impact of 3 good starters earlier in the season, and then everybody got hurt, and they quickly realized, like, man, to have quality inside linebacker play is a complete game changer on defense. They want that. Patrick Queen is young enough. Jerome Baker is young enough, and he's going to be cheap because, again, he's not going to sign right now. People are going to have to make sure that they could get him in for a physical and evaluate him with their doctors and see if he's the move. And if you could get those two, one of them for a lot of money, one of them for an amount of money on maybe a 2-year deal, that's the way to go. Have a Landon Roberts in there as your run stuffer. Fills every hole. Mark Robinson could stick around and be your guy. But I think that is the move for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Does that replace Cole Holcomb enough for you to feel good about it?
Patrick Queen? Oh, 100%. A 24-year-old, that's the future of that position. You're talking about an aging defense, and you are talking about one of the most expensive defenses. I know, Steelers Twitter,
Yes.
Steelers X, whatever you want to talk about. They love to bring up the fact that the Steelers have the most expensive defense, but bringing in a guy that's that young that could be part of that future, especially when a guy like Cam's gone, when a guy like, Minka starts to age out, bringing in a guy like that could be a centerpiece of the next generation of defense, especially on a defense that has historically been run through linebackers, inside and outside. You get Patrick Queen in here. I mean, even if it's a 5-year deal, which is what Spotrac's predicting, that's a good
Who cares?
middle linebacker that is going to be the stalwart of your defense for the next 5 years. So I like
5 years. You're 30 years older. He's just about 30 years old by the time he leaves Pittsburgh. That's totally fine with me. That makes all the sense in the world. I think that's the perfect situation for the Steelers. I'm surprised that they haven't made a run at him yet. But again, they were in Oregon State yesterday, and I mean, me, you, and Steven were joking around about it. Nobody told the Steelers that free agency started. They signed Russ and then jumped on a plane to the West Coast, and everybody was like, I just don't get why you're not signing anybody. Maybe because Omar Khan was over in Oregon. Let's move on to safety, because that's the big position. That's the one everybody wants to talk about. That's the free agents that, I mean, there's as much splash there as they could possibly get. I think CJ Gardner-Johnson makes so much sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but if you look on social media the last 24 hours, all it talks about is how the Philadelphia Eagles are making a push and a heavy push to go get CJ Gardner-Johnson. And Darius Slay tweeted out the other day or yesterday that, how he's working, and you just got to assume that is their guy. That's their target. He does make a ton of sense. He's 26 years old. You could keep this guy for the next 4 years. Cool. It would work out very well. I think that is the versatile option. I think that is if you're thinking long-term, that's the option. You sign him to a 1-year deal, maybe a 2-year deal. And then after that, you sign him to a more long-term contract for hopefully not a lot of money. He could play nickel. He could play safety. He can move around pretty much anywhere that you need him to move around. I think CJ Gardner-Johnson makes a lot of sense for the Steelers, but I wouldn't even be surprised if by the time we got off of this podcast, he's signed by the Eagles. So there are other names. People want to talk about Jordan Whitehead, a local kid. Cool. I think Jordan Whitehead fits for what the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking to do, but I think it takes away from what Minkah Fitzpatrick is capable of doing and how they want to move Minkah around. I'm not a move Minkah around guy. I think Minkah Fitzpatrick plays best as a center fielder. You will allow him to just do whatever he could do and come up with turnovers and interceptions and whatever. He plays best there, but the Steelers want to utilize him as somewhat of a Troy Polamalu, and I don't think they're going to give up on that dream. So you got to have options. I don't think Jordan Whitehead fits allowing Minkah to do that. Justin Simmons does, and Justin Simmons is by far the biggest name that the Pittsburgh Steelers could sign at safety. He makes all the sense in the world. $11.1 million over 2 years is what Spotrac has his market value at. And I'm sorry, but I'm giving up $11.1 million over 2 years for Justin Simmons. That's $30 million, just above $30 million for your safety, which is crazy. Like, that's a ton of money, way too much money to pay one position. But again, you just signed Russell Wilson for $1.2 million. Your quarterback situation is so beyond cheap, you don't have to worry about it at all. And now with Russ being there, and whether it's a competition or not a competition, I'm not concerned about Kenny Pickett's next contract. I'm not concerned about Kenny Pickett's 5th-year option. I'm looking at this and just saying, look, for right now, Kenny isn't in the long-term plans because he's got to beat out Russ. So this is only short-term thinking. You signed Russ to win a Super Bowl. Justin Simmons puts you on the map to go win a Super Bowl. I believe it was 3 interceptions last season. The dude's 31 years old. I get it, but he's a 4-time All-Pro. You go out and get that guy. 0 questions asked. I think that him and Russ have some connection, at least enough of a connection to say, hey, come to Pittsburgh. Mike Tomlin calls him, hey, come to Pittsburgh. I'm making that. Like, if I could sign Patrick Queen and Justin Simmons for, I don't know, $29 million, and you use Justin Simmons as a guy who his base salary's $4 or $5 million, and you toss him a huge signing bonus, that's minimum cap space, $23 million in cap space. You still have $5 million before you even do anything else, and you could still go out and get a boatload of guys. Plus, Patrick Queen, you could do the same thing with. You could sign him to a huge deal and give him that first year bunch of signing money so that it's not that big of a deal. That's what the Steelers specialize in. That's what Omar Khan specializes in. If you sign a deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers, chances are the last 2 years, 3 years of your deal, it's the Deontay Johnson effect. And this happened well before that. I mean, it forced Le'Veon Bell out because he wanted his money spread out a lot further than the first 2 years, and the Steelers just don't do that. You give these guys major signing money. You take a lower cap hit. You figure it out later in life. And this year, you just move on. You just get your guys and you lower their cap hit in 2024, and you have a team to go win a Super Bowl in 2024. And then in 2025, you figure it all out again, because that's what Super Bowl winning teams do. And I get it. That's not what a team who goes 9-8 every season does. The Steelers got to change their philosophy to some degree. And I think this is the year to go do it. I'm all about those guys. Some contingency plans would all obviously be Eddie Jackson. I think that makes a lot of sense. Jordan Whitehead, like I said, would make some sense. I don't know. Buda Baker hits the open market, which he won't hit the open market. But if he does hit the open market, man, dude, you make a run at that guy. As long as he's cheap, I'm not paying $20 million for 2 of my safeties. That ain't happening. But if for some reason this guy's signing for $12, $13 million a year, make a run at Buda Baker. See if that could work out for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I'm going those two. Those two are easily in my dream team, which we'll get to in a couple of minutes. But those are my guys. I saw Julian Blackman in the comments here. I think that makes a lot of sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I don't think he's nearly as splashy as Justin Simmons. And I think the Steelers are gearing up for a splash. Like, I think the Steelers waited yesterday to see, hey, everybody's gone. What's going on? Go make a splash. Go make a splash. I think they have the room to go make a splash. I got one more defensive guy for you. And then I got a center, because everybody wants to talk about a center, and centers aren't going to happen. I got a center. And then we'll finish it off with the dream team and some questions here. Defensive tackle. You missed out on Christian Wilkins. There was no chance the Steelers were getting Christian Wilkins. I love Christian Wilkins. I think he's a beast. The Steelers weren't going to go pay Christian Wilkins. Wasn't going to happen. DJ Reader, though. They might sign DJ Reader. Could you imagine if you somehow got Patrick Queen and DJ Reader and just said, hey, AFC North, come to Pittsburgh, have a good time? You might as well go get Joe Mixon, too, and say, hey, you're our third running back. Screw it. Tyler Boyd's coming to town, which we didn't even talk about wide receivers. We'll add them to the list, too, because I got 2 of them for you, Tyler Boyd and somebody else. I could see DJ Reader coming to Pittsburgh. And let me tell you why DJ Reader makes a ton of sense. His Spotrac market value right now is 3 years, $44.7 million. I believe he's 29 years old. This dude fits exactly what the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking for. They, in years past, have talked about, we need somebody to fix our run defense. We desperately need Tyson Alualu type player, another Cam Hayward, a big body in the middle who can just stuff the run and help settle the run defense. Last year in Indianapolis, nobody can name who those running backs were, and they ran through Pittsburgh like there was no defense playing at all, effortlessly. This happens every year. Every single year at some point in the season, the run defense just gives out, and the Pittsburgh Steelers are scrambling for answers. You go sign Patrick Queen and Jerome Baker, and you keep a Landon Roberts, you're feeling real good about your inside linebackers, especially when it comes to the run. You go get TJ Reader, that is exactly what he is a massive body on the defensive line to sit around and say, you're not going to run through me. It's not going to happen. I think that DJ Reader is a perfect fit. I think he's cost efficient, which is great, because if Cam's making $22 million a year and DJ Reader is only making 14.9, I mean, Larry Ogunjobi's set to make $13 million. That is the Larry O realm right there. And DJ Reader is twice as good as Larry Ogunjobi and specializes in the needs that the Steelers need. DJ Reader can move to nose tackle, which I wouldn't recommend, but he has the ability to move to nose tackle. That allows Keanu Benton to play all 3 positions. I just think that the options there are way better than the Steelers have for options right now. DJ Reader's a dude, and I think the Steelers should most certainly make a run. I think he makes the most sense of the available defensive linemen for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Some people tossed out like Jerry Tillery. Yeah, cool. I get it, but he's nowhere near DJ Reader. And I think that DJ Reader, I just think he makes so much sense. What are the chances, okay, if you had to toss him at me here, some odds or whatever? DJ Reader, Tyler Boyd, Patrick Queen all end up in the Steelers.
The chances of that, they're not high, because I honestly think that Tyler Boyd is a little bit of a pipe dream. After what we heard yesterday about T. Higgins and wanting a trade, I think that might allow the Bengals to go back in on Tyler Boyd. But DJ Reader, he is the top name out there. He's the guy that if you're looking to shore up your defensive line, he is 100% the guy you bring in. So DJ Reader and Patrick Queen, if you're going to spend it all on defense on the top of your defense, the first two levels, you can't go wrong with those two. So I would say odds are like 52% that it happens, 48% that it doesn't, if they're willing to spend it on defense.
I'm taking those odds all day, all day long, all day long. And especially if you can move on from Lario, which I think makes a lot of sense. I think the Steelers have to move on from Lario. I think there are too many options, and I just think that at some point you got to move on from Lario. Makes too much sense. That's my defensive tackle to watch for. We talked about inside linebackers. We talked about safeties. We talked about Tyler Boyd, because Tyler Boyd is 100% an option for the Steelers and should be. And if he goes back to Cincy, cool, I get that one. You're going to stay home, whatever. If you're not, if you are going to sign elsewhere, the Pittsburgh Steelers make so much sense. It's crazy. You could play the slot. It doesn't force you to move your hand on Deontay Johnson. He's only going to be like $8 million or something like that. He wants to finish his career with the Steelers, or at least he said he's open to it. Like, why not? Why would you not go sign Tyler Boyd and say, hey, come on home and let's work with Russell Wilson? My only issue there is Russell Wilson doesn't utilize the middle of the field, and Tyler Boyd specializes in the middle of the field, so maybe that's concerning, but he's going to have to do that anyways because Pat Fryermuth's not running outside routes, and this guy's operating on a contract year, so you gotta go and utilize the middle of the field. I think Russ makes the adaptation. He adjusts, and Tyler Boyd would make a ton of sense. I'm going to toss another name out there. This is much less splashy. This name is not very big. I was told about it as early as last offseason, that when the Steelers were looking at wide receivers and considering veteran options, this was a name to watch. That name, Mac Hollins, Atlanta Falcons, big body, physical dude, looks scary ripped all the time. I think he can make sense. He's 30 years old. You could sign him for a 1-year Allen Robinson type deal. And don't get me wrong, I know Allen Robinson was worth $1 billion, but the Steelers only had 1 year in mind with Allen Robinson. I think you could sign him for a 1-year deal, cheap, bring him in here, just be a gap guy to allow you to kind of boost that wide receiver room, especially if you're going to sign or draft somebody. And my thoughts there are, if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers and you're going to draft a wide receiver, which they pretty much indicated that they have their eyes on a lot of wide receivers in the NFL draft. If you are going to draft a wide receiver, you don't want the pressure of having to start him. You want best case scenario that he beats out your veterans. Mac Hollins is a guy like Tyler Boyd's a guy that you don't want him to beat out because he's very good and still young enough to provide some quality play for your team. Mac Hollins could be your fourth guy, and there could be no issues there. You could have Calvin Austin surpass him if need be. You could have a rookie surpass him at some point need be. Then you got 4 guys that you feel really good about. Mac Hollins is just, look, I get it. He's not a splashy name. He's nowhere near the Tyler Boyds or whoever else you want to toss out there for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we've talked about a lot of them on the podcast before. But I think that the Steelers have some interest in him, and I think that they've had some interest in him for a while, and I just wouldn't be surprised if he's a name that they consider, especially as we go later into free agency where it's just so cheap, so physical, 1-year deal, cool, come get him, whatever. If I had to guess, though, if I had to put my money on it, Tyler Boyd's the name. Tyler Boyd's 100% the name. All right, let's talk centers. Everybody wants to talk about Mitch Morse gone. Am I saying that name right, by the way? I've been trying to figure that out for days now. Mitch Morse.
Mitch Morse, I would assume.
Yeah. He's gone. Signed with Jacksonville. The Steelers made a quote-unquote aggressive push for this guy. Everybody wants to talk about taxes. The NFL players are smart enough to consider taxes. I did not put that into account. But Jacksonville, 2 years, I think it was $10 million. What was your aggressive push if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers? They lost him. They lost, I think there was like 4 or 5 centers that went yesterday right off the board. And everybody's talking about the Steelers missed out on a center. Now they got to draft a guy. I can't believe that this happened. I still think the Steelers do draft a guy at some point this NFL draft. I don't know if it's going to be the first 2 rounds, but I think they do draft a center at some point. But I've been told since Indianapolis, and I continue to be told up until this day, that the name that they're looking at is Brian Allen. The name that they have interest in is Brian Allen. Connor Williams makes a lot of sense for these guys. I think he's much more of a big hitter, but I think he might be too much of a big hitter for them because, again, I think that they do want to draft a center. Brian Allen, he's very talented. The concern is this dude gets hurt a lot, like a lot. He's played one full season, I want to say. Last year, he played 5 games. The year before that, I think he played 7. Last year was a strained calf. I don't know what it was the other years, but Brian Allen's a name that the Steelers have in mind. They've been looking at him. They've been considering him. I think that they will eventually just see if he's healthy and then make a really low ball offer. Here's my thing with Brian Allen. Brian Allen's a quality starter when he's healthy. He's not a Mason Cole. He's definitely an upgrade. And if he could stay healthy, you feel really good. The problem is that he never stays healthy. So you are taking a major risk on this guy as your long-term starter or as even a full year starter when there are probably other options in there that you could walk the line and add a bigger name. But again, the Steelers don't want to add a bigger name. They don't want a guy that's going to be here for 4 or 5 years. They want a guy that's going to be here for 1 year, maybe 2 years, and then they have a center out of the draft who's maybe a 3rd-round pick, 4th-round pick, a guy like Cedric Van Pran, who just comes in here and makes a lot of sense. They want Nate Herbig to get an opportunity. Like, it doesn't make any sense. This is typical Pittsburgh Steelers thoughts, but that's the name that I've been told. I, again, don't feel super good about it, but that's a name to certainly watch. I saw you typing. Were you looking up injuries of Brian Allen?
I wasn't. I can try to look up those injuries, but it might take a while to scroll through all of them because it's been about every year that
Every
there's
single
been
season.
injuries. Yeah.
Every single season. This guy, he can't stay healthy. It's a concern. But again, that's the name that the Pittsburgh Steelers have in mind. I don't think it makes much sense, but it is. All right, let me toss. Go ahead. Do you
want the laundry list here on
Brian
Allen?
Yes, I do actually.
2022 was a calf. It was also a knee and a thumb in 2022. There's like 30 in 2022. A knee and an elbow in 2021. Knee all the time in 2020 as well. So it seems like he got some weak knees. I don't know if you like that knees, for a center.
Yeah, no, I don't think you do. I think it might, if you sign him, maybe it boosts your draft stock for a guy like Zach Frazier, but are you trying to back yourself into a corner and draft Zach Frazier? Especially earlier than maybe you thought you would. That's tough. That's a tough call. I'm not super I'm not super sold on it. That's a laundry list. That's a tough laundry list. Like I thought it was calf strain last year, maybe one injury. To have multiple injuries every single year that's sitting you out of games, that's when you know.
It was only one in 2020. It was just a knee, but it was only one. 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
That's a big one. And that's like his 4th knee. So you're running out of, like, at some point your knees you're bending every day, dude. You're a lineman. You're holding 300 plus pounds, bending down, snapping a football with one hand, sometimes with no hands. No, not about it.